It's that time again. The annual conference of the American Society of Ag Consultants, otherwise known as ASAC, is going to be held in Fort Myers, Florida, this November 4th and 5th. Kurt Covington is one of 9 professionals who will address the conference. The other speakers who will cover a wide range of topics represent Florida Farm Bureau, Florida Citrus Commission, University of Tennessee Institute of Agriculture, National Ag Law Center, Risk Mitigators and Advisors, Tyler Associates, as well as the lead economist for dairy at CoBank, and myself, Chrissy Wozniak from North American Ag. The day and a half of presentations will be followed by ag tours on Tuesday afternoon at Echo Farms, one of my favorite places here in Fort Myers. Attendees will experience farming at its most creative, with unique demonstrations, plants, and techniques being used to help farmers and urban gardeners in developing countries. A second tour at Echo will showcase simple technologies that can improve food, water, and shelter for millions of people. A third tour of a hydroponic grower is also being planned. For more information and to register, visit www.agconsultants.org. That's www.agconsultants.org. See you there. Welcome to North American Ag Spotlight. I'm Chrissy Wozniak. We're living in a time right now where traditional agriculture is under attack. Less than 2% of the population grows 100% of the food. The economy, inputs, ag policy, weather, and the supply chain have all dealt their blows to the industry over the last few years. But just like any business, when times get tough, you need to pivot, be creative, and think outside the box. So this is why I've invited today's guest on the show to talk about how he started a company that not only created a sound business model, but it also gives producers some options that can help their succession plans, or for new farmers, the possibility to eliminate their main capital expense. From Nashville, Tennessee, I'd like to welcome founding member of LandFund Partners, who now owns over 35,000 acres across the Mississippi River Valley, President and COO, Chris Morris. Thank you, Chris, so much for being here, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Chrissy. Yeah, great to be on the podcast. I've listened to several episodes and excited to speak with you today.
Awesome. So you've been recognized as one of Nashville's top 40 under 40 by the Nashville Business Journal. So let's start there by talking about your background and what brought you here.
Sure. So I am from a small town in Kentucky called Maysville, Kentucky, rural community, a lot of farm agriculture background, and grew up working on some farms and realized that, it was really hard, first of all. And secondly, that I wanted to go get an education. So went to Center College, which is in Danville, Kentucky, studied finance and economics. And through that, met my business partner, John Farris, who had worked at the World Bank and studied food security, and really, marrying interests in food policy, global food security, and investing. We had the idea to start LandFund Partners, which at its most simple overview raises capital for investors to help them acquire farmland in the Mississippi River Valley with water. And then we lease those farms out to our preferred farmers in that region of the country. And that was about 10 years ago. Seems like yesterday, but time flies when you're having fun, and we've had some success.
Yeah, that's great. And why have you focused on the Delta region specifically?
Yeah, so we really started studying water. So all of our land is above the alluvial aquifer system, which has several hundred years of water and is replenished by the Mississippi, White, and Arkansas rivers. We also really started to understand crop diversity and the fact that our farmers can plant, more than just maybe what you typically would think of as corn and soybeans as primary cash crops. Our farmers can plant cotton. Arkansas is the largest rice producing state in the country now. And there's some other things like peanuts, grain sorghum, and wheat, obviously, that can be grown in the region. So we think that there are more tools in the farmer's toolbox when they're looking at the futures board in January, February, March, figuring out what to plant that year. They have more ways to make a profit.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, there's a lot of diversity in that area. So what does the relationship with your farmers or tenants look like?
Sure. So typically we have had long-term relationships. Generally, we do cash lease arrangements. We've done some crop rents, but we usually reset the pricing every year because what we've seen with some long-term leases is that the farmers end up agreeing to a price that the market may not support in year 2 or 3 or 4. And for the landowner, you feel like, well, is this really the right price? So we have long-term sticky relationships with our farmers. Generally, they're on the farms for 5 to 7 years, but we renegotiate the pricing annually because it has to be an economic arrangement where both parties can succeed. And if you get tied up in a long-term lease, that can lead to problems on both sides depending on price. So we consult closely with our farmers as to what they're going to plant. We are very responsive to what they need to be successful. So irrigation systems, drainage, something goes down, who's getting it repaired, additional grain storage facilities, and really listening to what the farmer needs to go and make a crop. And then as the landlord, we're trying to deliver them a turnkey asset that they don't have to worry about water. They don't have to worry about something going wrong. They can just focus on doing what they do best, which is making a great crop.
Wow. So you're saying that you are handling the irrigation, you're handling the grain handling, the infrastructure, the logistics?
Correct. Yes. So we it's a little more active role, I think, than you might think about from a farmland fund, but we think that that's really critical to the success because really all the cash flows coming off that property are being grown by the farmer. So we want to support them to accomplish their goals.
Right. That makes sense. And so who's your typical investor? And do you have any foreign investors in your fund too?
So we have a wide range of investors from high net worth individuals up to endowments and foundations, 100% US based. We have no foreign capital. And we think it's important for U.S. farmland to be owned by U.S. Investors. So, we have no plans to accept foreign capital at this time. We are, again, focused on this one region of the country, the Mississippi River Valley region, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri. And, ironically, many of our investors are not from that region. I think it's really attractive to people who maybe don't have exposure to the ag economy already in their business or in their family. So other parts of the country, but certainly, several investors here in our home states of Tennessee and Kentucky.
Yeah, that's great. And what does the deal sourcing process look like?
Sure. So we see deals from a range of different sources. So operating just in this one region for the last decade, we've built really strong relationships with state attorneys, real estate brokers, bankers, farmers. Our farmers will frequently bring us deals because they hear something's coming up and they want to expand their operation in that county. And then our team, boots on the ground team from the area, lived there their whole life. So we get a lot, kind of through the grapevine and, at the local diner, we'll hear some things and pick up deals that way. And increasingly over the last 3 or 4 years, more and more of our deals have actually been direct with owner operators. So as you and your listeners are well aware, the age of the average U.S. farmer is approaching 60 years old. And there are many people that have all their equity tied up in the land, and there aren't as many people staying on the farm. So, it's a chance for the investors to own a great farm, for the seller to get liquid, and they can settle their estate, do what they need to do from a tax planning perspective. And then we'll do a sale leaseback with them so they can actually stay on the farm and continue to farm it, for a predetermined period of time with that transaction. So we've seen more and more deals actually happen that way.
Good. And you mentioned boots on the ground. Does LandFund have boots on the ground team members?
Yes, we do. So our staff is based here in Nashville, but we also have an office down in Little Rock, Arkansas.
All right, great. And good land stewardship is obviously one of the most important roles for a producer. So can you describe some of the regenerative farming practices that your farmers are using?
Sure. So our farmers and LandFund, really, we've committed to trying to use as many regenerative practices as possible. We really got turned on to this idea 3 or 4 years ago, partly due to meeting a local farmer who had been doing these regenerative practices, and he was seeing outsized yield growth. And frankly, I drove by his farm last week, and the soil looks black. I mean, it's really impressive. I think there's something real to it. It takes a while for those benefits to play out, but we've already started doing some things like cover cropping, reduced no tillage where we can, and then reduce nitrogen applications as well. So, it doesn't fit for every single farm. And if you get a wet fall and you got a tractor in there and it gets rutted up, I mean, you're going to have to go till that next year, right? But on the whole, trying to do things that maintain and improve soil health has been a big part of our mission. And our farmers, stewardship, to your point, I mean, farmers care about the land more than anyone. It's a very intimate relationship, and I think we want to support them doing these things. So we're trying to help them make sure they're navigating the government programs correctly. There's a lot of money coming through this, coming through the pipes under this administration that maybe has a more of a climate focus, but certainly there's capital out there that farmers can get to support their cover cropping efforts and other environmental practices.
Yeah, that's it. And something we talked about last time we spoke was this idea of one size fits all. Like you just said, it doesn't apply to farming. There can be cover crops in one area and not the other. And how do you go about deciding what goes where? You have over 35,000 acres. That's a lot of land you're covering. So what's part of that decision-making process?
Sure. Well, I mean, really, we're relying on the farmers. It's not, it's not a mandatory thing. We're not telling a farmer, oh, you have to go plant a cover crop here, right? It's very much a back and forth conversation as to let's do these things where we can, where it makes sense. You can't be ideologically, blinded either direction. I mean, farmers have an incredibly hard job. It's a really tough business with, hundreds of variables. So we're more just having a long-term commitment to doing this on all of our properties. And we think that, again, the benefits in terms of crop yield growth over time, the benefits of saving on input costs, we've seen that as, if you're not planting into hard pan where it's been fallow all winter and there's been a cover crop growing, it's actually saving our farmers a trip when they go to plant. They don't have to spend that diesel to go till, once or twice. So we're seeing some promising signs already, but really it's up to the farmers to figure out where it makes sense.
Yeah, those are excellent points. And changing gears a little bit, something that really stands out to me here with your company is that it can provide an option to farmers who don't have kids that are interested in taking over the farm. I'm seeing so many producers selling their land into conservation easements because they don't feel like there's any other option. The problem is that once farmland gets into this designation, it's also almost impossible to get it out again, meaning that precious acres are lost forever. So I think that you have come up with a good alternative. So tell me about the sales process and what the deal looks like from the farmer's perspective.
Sure. So with regard to owner operators, or really even second or third generation landowners that are currently leasing out the asset but don't really know how to manage it, maybe don't have the farm expertise, there's something called a 721 exchange. And your listeners are probably all familiar with a 1031 exchange. It's a similar type of mechanism. And I'll preface this by saying that I'm not an accountant, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a tax person, so certainly not tax advice. But The 721 exchange allows a farmer or a landowner to contribute an asset into a limited partnership in exchange for units in that limited partnership. So it's a way to get liquid, and it's a tax deferred transaction. So if you do this contribution, it's not taxed at that time of the transaction. There may be some, depending on the debt on the property and the basis, and again, very sort of technical tax issues. There may be a small gain, but it certainly mitigates the big capital gain that you see most landowners that have owned the land for a long time have. I mean, many farmers that we work with have almost no basis, or it's been in their family since the 60s or 70s or 80s. But now it's worth a tremendous amount of money. And that's a big tax bill to take in 1 year. So the 721 allows you to spread that out, and then you can exit the property, exit the value of the property over multiple years. It helps if you have heirs, you can more effectively split up the ownership. It's really sad. And, again, I'm preaching to the choir here, but a lot of the transactions we see come out of family issues, family disputes, deaths, divorces, et cetera. And it's unfortunate to see family members, get into fights over things like breaking up the farm and money. So it's just another way that may be a little cleaner and easier to handle some of those other factors that come with selling the farm.
Yeah, that's it. It's definitely not something a lot of families want to talk about, but it happens. It's happening. And something to consider is that whether this administration or a future administration could eliminate the stepped-up basis, and then you're going to need to find different ideas like this to be able to, not get taxed out of business, right?
Yeah, and I think, consult your tax advisor, consult your attorneys. Most farmers that we work with are on top of all this stuff, but certainly just another option for farm families to have in their toolbox and to consider.
Yeah, for sure. And what advice do you have for producers across North America this growing season?
Wow, that's a tough question. Keep hedging.
Yeah.
It's
we can't all just buy a crystal ball, you mean? And
yeah, no, it's a hard question. I mean, your listeners would know better than I would, but we've seen the really successful farm operators that build equity, that increase their acreage. You can't be a gambler, right? Because eventually you crap out, and keep hedging, focus on your numbers, and we're always in awe of the ability of our farmers to navigate these challenging environments. So, hopefully there's still some profitability out there. I mean, with beans at $14 a few months ago, and corn's a little lower than it was, but I feel like there's certainly hopefully some opportunities to make money this year.
Absolutely. Now, I have one last question for you. Why do you personally serve the ag industry, and what's your greatest passion in all of it?
Well, I think, most simply, the U.S. farmer feeds the world. We export 40% of total ag production from this country. And, I think it's critical for America and also the world for the U.S. farmer to be successful. So being able to acquire and improve and deliver high quality farmland assets to our farmers, that's just a drop in the bucket in the whole system. But we feel strongly that, it's really important to the entire world and all humanity that, farmers are able to continue to innovate, make a crop, and be successful.
Yeah, great points. That's awesome. And thank you for what you do. It's great to know people are pivoting and thinking ahead.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And again, we're doing this for a long time. We have a perpetual fund, so we don't plan on selling. We're not trying to flip land. We're not trying to put it in the path of development or build an apartment complex or anything like that. I mean, we're truly looking at long-term fundamentals of high quality row crop farmland with water. So Yeah, I would love to engage with you again, or any of your listeners that have questions. And we have a website, landfundpartners.com, where people can learn more.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for joining me today. Thanks for all of the information.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Chrissy. You really enjoyed it, and pleasure speaking with you.
And thanks to all who are watching or listening. If you want to learn more, all of the links are provided in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe and share North American Ag Spotlight on YouTube, Rumble, or Telegram channels. And the podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Amazon, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And have a great day. Our newest podcast by North American Ag is called What Color is Your Tractor? The stories behind the ag brands you love and the ag brands you love to hate. Hosted by me, Chrissy Wozniak. We take a deep dive into the companies that have built modern agriculture. Subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. Go to whatcolorisyourtractor.com. Available on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts.